Johnny Carson is into his 8th year on The Tonight Show. And for almost 8 years now, millions of Americans have responded to 2 words with perhaps more, well, unprecedented enthusiasm for anybody in this business. And I think you're just not going to get an argument when you talk about the specialness of this personality. And it's a big kick for us to feature him on our program. Ladies and gentlemen, here's Johnny. And I hope you'll join us.
Riddle. What
Big question, but I'm going to go ahead anyway. Are you going to leave The Tonight Show?
Not in the foreseeable future, Phil. I think I have a contract with NBC, the network with a heart. I think it runs a couple of years from this April, and I'll probably stay with it for a couple of years.
Do you get antsy after 7 years and 4 months, same stage, same routine? Do you kind of hope for something a little different in this business?
Yeah, there are times, but I think that's goes with any job. You've got to get away from it for a while. I'm taking a little more time off the past couple of years than I did the first, say, 4 or 5 years. Only because if I don't, I start falling asleep during the show, which is bad. But I enjoy the show. But I think you have to get away from something like that. If you're doing 5 a week, 90 minutes, and so I'm taking occasional Fridays off, and I'm off next week. But it kind of recharges you.
I read where you're the kind of guy that could get bored in a lion's cage. You've got a real low threshold. You're always moving, scuba, the whole thing. Does that pretty much describe you?
Yeah, I have a low bug point. It's what my wife says. I'll start out with something and I'll go at it, tooth and nail, and then if I get to a certain point, I stop. I took up flying 5 years ago, and I got my license, and I flew for a couple of 100 hours, and then I got bored with it. So I haven't flown for 2 years. Then I took up the guitar. As soon as I got to a certain point, I guess, I got bored with it. So I go to astronomy, or I'll go to scuba diving. I don't know if that's good or bad, but it works for me.
What's the current kick? You're not too wild about golf, are you? Although you play.
I took it up and I quit. I didn't. I went and spent a lot of money on lessons, and went out. And the first time I played golf, I was playing in the '80s, and I played for a couple of years, and I found out that everybody cheats. Grown men cheat on golf. Nice men. I don't know what happens when guys get on a golf course. They cheat.
Yeah.
And I just didn't enjoy it anymore. And I quit, and then my son is beating me, which makes you feel, bad. So I really haven't played anymore.
I read where right after the show, you get in the limo and go home. And right after they run credits, I think 10 minutes later, you're in the apartment, huh? Is that
just about, yeah. We go up to the office and find out what we did wrong on the show that night, which can keep you there for several hours sometimes. But usually, when you've been with people all day, you've been involved in the show for, say, 5 or 6 hours ahead of it, you've done the show.
Yeah.
I kind of enjoy going home.
You really do lose a lot of your personal freedom in a position like you have. Would you like to be able to go to Sardi's without, all the...
You do that very good.
Yes. There he is.
No, I suppose that's true with anybody who, you're well-known when you go places. I think you have to give up a certain amount of your freedom, of your privacy in this business. It's a funny thing. It's a paradox. When you're first starting, that's what you want.
Right.
You want to be well-known. You want to be successful. And part of being successful, I suppose, in the entertainment business is being recognized and people coming up to you. And then after a while, you realize that you pay a certain amount for that, especially with children, if you have kids and you go someplace. I remember once we went ice skating at Rockefeller Center, and I thought, gee, that would be fun. It turned out that it wasn't fun at all.
Because
the people came around. Most of them are very nice, but you give that up.
When you first signed an autograph in front of your kids, how did they respond? Did it affect them in a way that undermines your ability to be their father, do you feel?
I don't know. It's hard to ask your own children. I remember when I used to write for Red Skelton in about 1954, and I would be down, and I also had a local show in Los Angeles at that time.
So you bet your wife, or...
No, this was the Red Skelton show. I was doing another disaster at that time. I did a show years ago. Nobody here has ever seen it, called Earn Your Vacation. It was on the CBS network Sunday after. You never saw it. It was terrible. We brought people on, they answered questions, and we sent them on a trip if they won. We have a couple been in Australia 11 years trying to win a trip back. It's weird. So what did I start to get to? I was writing for Red Skelton at that time, and I had this local show. And I remember Red's children. At the time, his young son was alive. You know, Red lost a son. And they had the young daughter, Valentina. Now, they would come down to Red Skelton show, who's been a star for 40 years. They would completely, I mean, he was Daddy. He was just their father, where they would run over to me and say, Daddy, guess who's here? Johnny Carson. And I was doing a local show in Los Angeles. So I guess it's all relative, you see. Your own, to me, my kids, I'm their father, and that's about it.
I, as you could guess, take a special interest and involvement when I watch your show, because I think I can tell more than the other viewer when you're in trouble. Now, wait. Now, you've been doing this for 7 years and 4 months, 5 nights a week. You've been on the ropes.
Oh, yes, sure.
I
think it's no fun. It's really no fun if you don't get on the ropes occasionally.
Right. If it's all plastic and
Sure.
control. Have you ever? How often do you look at the guest and you're sitting there and you say to yourself, "Who booked this?"
Are you thinking this now, Phil? I get the impression somehow. No, that happens, sure. You'll sit there and you'll ask a question, nothing happens. The guest freezes up for whatever the reason. They get nervous, and you can tell they're nervous. I can always tell when somebody's coming unglued on me. It usually starts with a small... And you get this. Have you ever got those from a guest? And then the hand is going, and you know you're in trouble. But sometimes guests just get... I think they get scared or something happens and they don't communicate, and you wonder how you're going to bail out.
Now, on the other hand, I'm impressed with the way most of your guests come out of the gate. They come on to applause and they sit, and boom, and many of them, before you even have to launch it, they say, let me tell you what happened the way at the studio, and boom, they do 4 minutes.
Right.
And now that's a great feeling, isn't it?
That's great. We call those self-starters.
Is that... Well, the producer
Certain
really
guests.
is responsible for that in a lot of ways. You know, the people who book, or do they talk?
I think a lot of people want to come out and get started.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, they sit back there, and maybe they've been sitting there for 25, 30 minutes, and they're getting in their mind what they're going to say, which sometimes is good and bad, because they're all preset what they're going to do when they get out there. So they may come out there, and you're all ready to say something like, how are you? And they launch right off. They're going to say what they have to say no matter what you say. So sometimes they're going to work the other way. You know, you could say, I hear your grandmother died. And they said, you know, I was in Chicago the other day. And they wouldn't hear you at all.
Yeah.
But usually it works.
Does the... this is one of those... this is a heavy question, so stay with me just for a second. Are you concerned about the ability to translate phenomenal popularity at 11:30 to 1 in the morning into primetime programming concepts?
I don't quite follow you.
Is it difficult? Parr did not necessarily, was not gangbusters when he left.
No, Jack and I are friends, not close friends, but no, I've never said anything patronizing to Jack Parr, because he took a show at that time on NBC quite a few years ago. There was absolutely nothing. The Marriott followed that fiasco, America After Dark, and was responsible for really bringing the show around.
Mm-hmm. Well, it just occurs to me that the American public demands that they sort of demand that they own you in this programming concept, or subliminally this is the feeling, and to attempt to do anything else in a special way at 9 o'clock with a big production, high budget situation, is sort of lean back a little bit. They want good old Johnny back on the scene.
I think you leave yourself open. We did a show for Monsanto a couple of months ago, and people either crucified us or they liked it. There was absolutely no in between, because the show was somewhat different, and we did some things that we knew were kind of dangerous in certain areas. But certain critics were kind of waiting, saying, okay, here comes the guy who sits at the desk 11:30, and now you're on, and you're doing an hour show. And they kind of get ready for you. I think sometimes maybe unfairly. But I don't think critics are that important. I don't think critics make a television show, or do they break it. I think it's the audience that watches, and critics can say, the show is terrible, they've never been able to take a show off the air, and they've never really been able to save a show if it's good, if the audience doesn't watch it. Ultimately, I think it comes up to the people who watch.
Does Ed McMahon drink?
Is the Pope a Catholic? Ed has been known. Ed's on a diet now.
Is he?
He's in the intensely fat unit at, at Bellevue. No, Ed has a propensity to go heavy. He's big, he's Irish, and he likes to have a small beaker once in a while, and it all goes to weight. You know, some people can do that, and the metabolism, I guess, burns it up. Ed, no.
You're trim. Do you work at it, or does it just happen for you?
I think it runs in the family. My grandfather was 95 years old, January the 7th. And I think he weighs 165 pounds. That's what I weigh. My dad's still living, weighs 165. I can't take any credit for it. I think that just is a genetic thing.
We'll find out what the folks would like to rap with you about,
Sure.
Johnny. Johnny Carson, our guest on this program, back in just a moment.
I know you and Dick Cavett are good friends.
I didn't know you did ventriloquism, Joe. I thought you were going to pick this up and talk.
No, this is... Yes, sir, go right ahead.
I know you and Dick Cavett are good friends. How do you feel about him being on late night TV with you?
Dick?
Yes.
Yes, Dick's very clever. He used to write for The Tonight Show. I hate to be a hypocrite and say that I would be a hypocrite if I say I wish him tremendously well, since he's opposite us, because I don't know whether 3 late-night shows can be opposite each other the same night, and all 3 of them remain successful.
You think one of them's going to go off?
I would guess. Seriously.
You think it'll shake out to 2, huh?
I think probably it will eventually.
Just 2, then.
I would guess so.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks for calling.
Thank you.
Johnny Carson on the line. Hi.
Hi, Johnny. I'd like to know how he got to be host of The Tonight Show.
I ran an ad. No, that's not true. NBC just asked me after Jack Parr decided to quit after 5 years. I was doing that daytime show, and they asked me if I would care to do it. Originally, I turned it down.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, originally I turned it down because it was kind of comfortable in the afternoon at 3:30, and there wasn't any great problems. Go in and do the show, and you leave, and it was kind of a nice, comfortable living. But I think if you're going to perform, you have to kind of take a whack at it and say, I want to try this. So on second thought, I did take the show.
Do you well, I thought, I didn't know that you had turned it down first.
Originally, I did.
So I thought you would be able to tell us the story about when you got the phone call and how great you felt, and et cetera. That's not the way it happened.
Well, I was really out of town, and my manager at that time called me and said they wanted me to take over. And I realized what a tremendous success Jack Parr had made out of that show, which he had. It was a very controversial show. Jack's a unique personality. There was a lot of emotion involved with the show. And I said, gee, that's a tough thing to try to go in, because you have to overcome that. It's like any young actress who had to overcome Marilyn Monroe for a while, the inevitable comparison of the way you do the show. And I thought maybe it'd be a little dangerous and it might be the wrong move. But then I figured, well, if you're really going to want to entertain, you want to be in this business, you've got to take a good run at it. So on second thought, I took it.
7 years and 4 months.
Later.
Number 1. Thanks for calling, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Johnny Carson on the line. Hello.
Hey, hello.
Hi.
Is this Mr. Carson?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, the reason I called was I wanted to find out, do you ever have an opportunity to read any of the mail that comes into your office?
Yes.
Do you ever read any of it?
Oh, sure.
You do. Well, the reason why I ask, I read an article in a TV Guide some time ago, how people fight to sit next to the throne of the majesty, Mr. Carson.
Yes.
And so I sent you a painting, a photograph of a painting that I made called A Man's a Man. I thought you might appreciate, and I received a letter back from your secretary.
Oh.
Saying how much you'd appreciate it, but it wasn't signed by you. And
Now, wait a minute. Let's find out. Do you understand the article? Are you familiar with the article that you're referring to?
Yes, I know what you're talking about.
Well, brief us on that. Everybody wants up front or down close to...
No, I didn't understand that point. I thought you were talking about the letter.
No, I sent a letter. I sent a picture, a photograph of a painting that I had made, A Man's a Man,
Right.
which I thought would give you an idea of what I meant concerning this article that was in TV Guide, you
I
know.
don't believe I did see it.
You didn't?
No, I don't believe so. That sometimes does happen. Because I imagine that the Tonight Show probably gets 4,000 or 5,000 pieces of
Well,
mail
this
a week.
wasn't on the from the Tonight Show.
No.
Uh-huh.
No, I didn't understand that point. I thought she was talking about the letter.
No, I sent a letter. I sent a picture, a photograph of a painting that I had made, A Man's a Man,
Right.
which I thought would give you an idea what I meant concerning this article. It was in TV Guide, you
I
know.
don't believe I did see it.
You didn't?
No, I don't believe so. That sometimes does happen. Because I imagine that the Tonight Show probably gets 4,000 or 5,000 pieces of
Well,
mail
this
a week.
wasn't on the from the Tonight Show.
No.
Do you have time?
But anyway, I got the letter. It was from your secretary, and she said how much you appreciated it, and so that's the reason I was just wondering if you ever read them, you know.
Well, John, the
Now here's Phil.
I would have liked for you to have seen the picture.
Do you understand, ma'am, how difficult it would be for us to recreate the whole circumstance surrounding the incident to which you relate in the article and the painting? We'd have to see it. And, but John will
Phil's
stop
right.
by to her house after the show.
Yes,
John.
yes.
Thanks for calling. I'm glad you called.
All right. Thank
Really. 5 days a week.
Yes.
Hi, Johnny Carson on the line. Hello.
Better get an unlisted show.
I'd like to ask Mr. Carson if Ed McMahon really drinks and if he minds that kidding he gets about his drinking.
Well, we're back on the subject
About
about Ed.
Ed does not, obviously. Anybody who does a show 5 nights a week can't be an alcoholic.
No.
We probably make too many jokes about it, like Jack Benny used to do about Phil Harris, or Jack Benny made about Don Wilson and his weight. It's a device for humor, and sometimes we lay a little heavy on it.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean that he's an abstainer.
Thanks for calling. Thank you. Johnny Carson on the line. Hi.
Hi, I'd like to ask Mr. Carson if he books his own guests on the TV show or if someone else does it for him.
We have a staff. I have a producer, associate producer, and 4 talent coordinators who normally book the show. Although in the final analysis, I sit down with my producer, and we talk over who the guests will be, and I may change it or say fine or suggest somebody else. But generally, it's done with the staff.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for calling. Hi, Johnny Carson on the line. Hello.
Well, hello, and hi, Johnny.
Hi.
And welcome to Dayton, and I'm so glad
Thank you.
finally made it. And first of all, I better tell you that you really aren't my husband's best friend, because every night he says, "Are you going to watch him again?" And I'm so afraid I'm going to miss something. But I want to ask, the other night...
I missed that.
Pardon me? Pardon me?
She'd rather watch you on television than talk to her husband.
Yeah, I'm so afraid I'm going to miss something.
Well, your
Surely
husband
you can
will have
wait
to learn to
until-
put on a better show than I do.
Well, I'm afraid he might agree with you. But listen, the other night when David Susskind was on...
I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that.
Pardon
What was
me?
the question?
Pardon me?
What was the question? Or was it?
The other night when David Susskind was on, was
Yes.
that all for real? Were they really, are they really enemies?
No, I don't think they're enemies, but it was all for real.
Well, I
Apparently-
didn't mean really enemies, but I felt like maybe he was trying to be nice, and she just wouldn't let him.
Well, I don't think there's any great love between the two of them, but it made for an exciting show.
Yes, it did. I wouldn't have missed it for anything, or the nights following.
David will be back with us on the 28th of this month, or of January, with Bill Buckley. Which ought to be an interesting show.
That'd be a good one.
That ought to be a dandy.
Oh.
Yes.
Well, I wouldn't miss it.
Well, thanks for calling, and tell your husband Johnny says hello.
I will. Oh, no, I'm just kidding. He really does like him, but it's just that's such a late hour for a school teacher.
All right. Well, thanks for calling.
Uh-huh,
Bye-bye.
bye.
Johnny Carson on the line. Hi.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to ask Johnny if Bubbles is deceased.
Bubbles. Mr. Bubbles.
John Bubbles?
Yeah.
Yes.
No, the last I heard, he had been in the hospital. In fact, I had a Christmas card from him. John Bubbles, I don't know if you've seen him on our show. Was
Yes, that's the reason
one
I-
half of the famous vaudeville team of Buck and Bubbles from some years ago.
Yes.
And I think John is in his 70s now. He was quite ill, but he's living out in California now, and seems to be getting along fine.
Well, that's good. I've seen him so much on your show and had missed him lately.
Right.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you for calling.
Sure.
We haven't talked about Doc Severinson's clothes. Actually, he's serious, isn't he? I mean, does he wear them in the street, or is he...
Doc is, I hope not. No, Doc is undergone quite a transformation since he started leading the orchestra. It started out rather conservative, and as things have gone on, he's come up with these wild outfits.
Okay, and well, I'd maybe write some off, huh? Maybe.
I would think so, yes.
Johnny Carson on the line. Hi, thanks for calling.
I want to ask you how old you are.
How old do you think I am?
I think about, well, you look like you're about 40, 41.
That's right. No, I'm 44.
Really?
But thank you.
Oh, okay. You don't look it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for calling.
Okay, bye-bye.
Hi, Johnny Carson on the line. Hello.
Hi, I would like to ask Johnny, do he think that he will have any more weddings on his show?
Any more what? Weddings. Oh, weddings.
The caller doesn't sound old enough to get married, are you? I don't know how we could follow the wedding of Tiny Tim. I think we'll call a halt right there. That's the only one we've scheduled.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks
Bye.
for calling. Thank you. Johnny Carson, our guest on this program. Back in just a moment.
If there's political pressure put on you to have certain people on your show.
Is there?
Yes.
No, not really. Most politicians for our kind of a show are not the best guess, because I don't work like certain, I mean, our show is not Meet the Press. I don't try to get involved and put people on the defensive. So most political guests for our kind of a show, you don't accomplish too much by asking them questions unless you really want to go after them, and that's not our bag, as they say. But there's no pressure.
You'll stand, please.
Yes, I'd like to ask Johnny if he's going to go in the movies, and if so, what type character would he like to play?
I was saying to Phil, it's a strange thing. Most people who've done television, who have played themselves, have never really successfully made the transference to motion pictures. It's most difficult to do. People accept you after 7 years so much as yourself. I think to go into a motion picture and play a part is very difficult. People can't separate the personality from something you're playing. I've looked at a lot of scripts. I haven't found really anything that intrigues me yet. But I think it's got to be a complete departure from what you normally do.
Someone else? Who did I? Yes, you'll stand, please.
I want to know, why do you do what you're doing now?
Actually, I'm hatching an egg here.
I mean,
Coming out here?
Dating? Yeah.
Because I think if you're a performer, an entertainer, you have to work in all fields. And most entertainers do. If you like personal appearances or concert dates or nightclubs, that's one end of it. Television's another. Motion pictures might be one. A play might be another. And I think if you like it and you like the contact, you go out and play all different kinds of shows.
Do you appreciate what appearing on a program like this, sort of helps the show itself?
Will it?
Well, obviously the easy thing to do would be to walk away from this. I mean, there's not a whole lot I can do for you, John. The point I'm making is that I do appreciate your taking the time to...
I'm delighted to come over here.
Who else did I? Yes, you'll stand.
I'd like to know if you'll be rerunning Tiny Tim's Wedding, because I missed that and I'd like to see it.
I don't know. That was a very touchy thing to put on the air in the first place. We had... NBC originally was against it. We had to shoot it a certain way, which I think we did as best we could, so we didn't get too personally involved. I think for a wedding on television, we treated it with about as much dignity as you could, and yet there are some people who still think it's wrong for people to get married on television, although I don't know why. Bride and groom used to be on for years, every day. We probably won't rerun it, because I think that's a one-time type of thing, and I think by rerunning it, you'd take away from the original.
The point of sensitivity is the possibility of getting laughs on top of a sacred occasion, and that offends people?
I know. I think that there's just some people just think it is wrong for a wedding to be placed on television. They figure it's more private.
Yes,
This is a private occasion.
Excuse me. This isn't my question, but you mentioned Bride and Groom was on the air for years. As I remember, they actually didn't show the ceremony on camera, though. They went off camera, right?
Oh, no, they showed
Did
the
they show
ceremony
it
on
on
camera. They came out of the chapel, and they did close-ups of the bride and groom,
I thought
and
they
then the
went
wedding
off camera.
vows. Yes, it was much more intimate than what we did, because we shot it off in the back.
I know. Well, my question was, everybody always wants to know what you're really like. I think we know. You're a doll, I might say. But what is Tiny Tim really like? Isn't he a put-on, really?
I told him once on the show, I think a couple of years ago, I said, if you are a put-on, I said, it's the biggest put-on I've ever seen. I don't think so.
You don't think he's...
No, I don't. I think he is just what he appears to be. Different? Yes, obviously. I don't think he's dumb. In fact, a lot of the press got on him. I think they quoted the next day in the wedding. If you remember during the vows, he said something about being puffed up. And everybody kind of laughed until he pointed out the next day that that was from Corinthians 1 in the Bible, which it is. So he is not exactly, he was on good solid ground.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to ask His Worship why
His Worship?
The Jack Paar program was quite controversial. Why did you change the format? What was your reason for that?
Because, one, I'm not Jack Paar, and I think controversy, night after night, is difficult to sustain. I think shows that have gone in just for controversy, to bring on two people with opposing views, is very easy night after night. It's easier to do that kind of a show than it is to get laughs. I'd rather stay in the entertainment than just to try to create controversy.
And
That's
it should
too
be
easy.
established, too, that you do some noble things.
Oh, we've had quite a bit. I had Dr. Paul Ehrlich on a couple of weeks ago, the biologist from Stanford. I've had Jim Garrison on. We've had quite a few people on. I think you have to do it in perspective with the rest of the show. But I think to fall into a habit every night and say, we're going to discuss civil rights, we're going to discuss prostitution, and then pretty soon you run out of things to talk about.
Thanks for calling. Johnny Carson on the line. Hi.
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 I just wanted to find out how many days ahead the show is actually taped before we see it.
We do it the same day.
We see it live then?
We tape it in New York at 6:30. You see it the same night.
Oh, I see. Now, the other question was, since it is a tape show, how many times do you find that you have to edit something out because your guest has said something that isn't, printable or speakable?
Very seldom, really. They'll occasionally bloop something. Not very often. Most people who are on a show realize the limitations. There are certain standards under the Federal Communications Commission. That's one of them. They should have blooped. There are certain words that you're not supposed to use. You couldn't say damn or even hell on the air a few years ago, but they will allow us an occasional one. I don't know how corrupting that can be at 11:30 at night, but they do it. I think it's loosening up a little bit.
Yeah, I just know that quite often when it is pre-taped, you get the impression that the reason for this is for censoring. Is this the reason that yours is pre-taped?
No, the reason is that it's much easier to do a show at 6:30 to 8 than it is 11:30 to 1 in the morning.
I see.
Availability of guests, your audience gets tired, strangely enough, at that time of night. Many people aren't used to staying up to 1 o'clock in the morning, and they're into the studio an hour before the show, which means that they've sat there for 2.5 hours by the time we're through. So we do it from 6:30 to 8, so because we have a greater availability of guests usually.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for calling. I noticed, John, that you've held off going with this New York hair thing. Now, is there a pressure on you to sort of change and go with the way it is now? I notice a lot of the other personalities do change, and they seem to have a...
What do you mean?
Well, like the long hair in the back. Now, yours...
Yeah?
You stay pretty straight. Does anybody tell you to change or make it longer, or...
No.
And your clothes are, well, of course, compared to Doc Severinsen, you look like...
I think this is very sharp, Phil.
I do, too.
I think that's nice if you're running a bingo game.
Under the B. Hi there. Thanks for calling. Johnny Carson on the line. Hello.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
I'd like to know how you like living in a big city like New York as compared with a small town like Dayton.
I don't know. I think everything is really relative. I think if you enjoy your work, you can be happy any place. In the Midwest or New York or Los Angeles, I don't think that's really important. If you have a certain amount of friends and you enjoy what you're doing, I think your locale is really unimportant.
Do you think the people are friendlier in Dayton?
Friendlier in Dayton?
Yes.
I don't know. New York is always made to appear that all the people there are very sophisticated. I don't think you find that. I think you find that most of the people who are born in New York have never been out of New York. New York, in many ways, is a small town.
Thank you.
Thank you. Johnny Carson.
You find that most of the people who are born in New York have never been out of New York. New York, in many ways, is a small town.
Thank you.
Thank you. Johnny Carson on the line. Hi.
Hello. First of all, I would like to say that I enjoy Mr. Carson's show very much. My question is in reference to the monologue that he delivers. it seems like about 90% of the time it's either delivered to Ed McMahon or Doc Severinsen. I was wondering if this is an unconscious thing that Mr. Carson has or what.
Gee, I really don't know. I'm not conscious of what I do when I do the monologue. I direct it certain ways. I try to play to the studio audience back and forth. I suppose it's a device to move back and forth across the audience because one is on one side and Ed is on the other, but I'm not conscious of it.
I find it hard to be objective when I watch TV because I've been in the television business. So this is the one thing that I picked out. But other than that, I enjoy your show very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for calling. Johnny Carson on the line. Hi.
I'd like to know if how come he's always making fun of Doc Simerson's clothes.
Have you seen him?
Yeah.
You like the clothes, do you?
Yeah, I think he dresses pretty cool myself.
Yeah. I think that's where it's at. I believe halfway, well, maybe sooner than that. 72, 73, we're all going to look that way. It's sort of like a walking candy cane. But,
Doc's a pace setter.
Yeah, right. He's a prophet. Thanks for calling.
Uh-huh.
Who can I count on over here? Did I see it? You'll stand, please. Yes.
Ed McMahon used to host the Concentration Show. Why isn't he on there anymore?
I think, as far as I know, that the show had been on like 10, I believe, or 11 years before Ed really took it over. I think the show ran its course, and they just changed some programming. It'd been on quite a while before he took it.
I was wondering, is it really necessary to have so many commercials on your show? I heard that they added some more to your show.
I wish there weren't so many. That seems to be one of the things that television has too many. I hope they don't think I'm responsible for them.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. You'll stand.
John, if you have this low point of interest, a high interest point, and then you drop this thing, does your wife keep her bags packed, or?
No, she understands me pretty well.
Does she partake of the scuba and all the activity, or is he?
Yeah,
she does. Huh?
Yeah, she likes to fly.
Still have a boat?
No, gave up the boat.
Yeah. Yes, sir. We're back here on the wrong channel. You want to come up here in the light where we can see you? Yeah.
Mr. Carson, I understand that a lot of people try to get to see you in unusual ways because they've done something that they think merits a performance on your show. Do you appreciate this type of boldness?
It depends. I once went to the Mayo Clinic a couple of years ago, just for a regular physical exam. And I was staying overnight in one of the hotels that they have right next to the clinic. And about 4 in the morning, I heard music. And I got up and I opened my door. And there were 2 young ladies and 2 fellows with guitars standing out in the hall, singing and playing at 3 in the morning, auditioning. True, and I couldn't believe it. It struck me terribly funny. And I thought that was a little bold, yeah, under those circumstances.
Mr. Carson, once I dressed up like a waiter to try to get to see you, and that didn't work.
Where? Where? In New York?
In New York, yeah. I did a radio marathon, and I stayed on 200 hours, and I thought it might merit an appearance on your show. And I never got past your secretary because she said she took karate, and I'm a big chicken. But,
well, what if...
If this is a subpoena, you're in trouble, Phil.
What is that, a bio on you?
No, it isn't. It's just a brief statement on the marathon and what the performance might merit on your show.
Where are you from?
I'm from Dayton. I used to work here at TV, too.
Yeah, and your name is?
Terry Wilson.
Okay, Terry, I'll look it over.
Thank you, Mr. Carson. I enjoy your performances very much each evening. Thank you.
All right. Terry, nice to say hello. Well,
probably a subpoena.
You know, I got a mental picture of him someday, coast to coast, saying, "Would you please help him?"
You never know.
Here's Phil trying to make a comeback.
You never know.
Let me see. Hi there, Johnny Carson on the line. Hello.
Hello. I'd like to find out if Ed McMahon is really serious about his recent diet plans and how much he weighs.
I told Ed I wouldn't say on the air how much he weighed. He weighed himself the other night.
Uh-huh.
He said the first day he lost 7 pounds. I don't understand how that could be, unless his tongue fell out on the bar. No, he's on some kind of a water diet, protein or something, but he seems to be serious about it.
Oh, well,
He's about 30 pounds or 40 pounds overweight.
well, I think he looks fine just the way he is, but I hope he makes it.
Thank you for calling.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Johnny Carson on the line. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
I'd like to ask Mr. Carson if he has tried, are they handmade, and especially to coordinate this, they're always so nicely coordinated with the suit and his shirt.
Yeah. Good time.
And if so, approximately how much he pays for them. Of course, that's personal, I know.
Yes, it is. I really don't know. I just dress the way it's comfortable for me, and I pick them out myself.
Oh, they're not handmade then?
Some of them are, yeah. Some of them, if I find something, I'm walking down the street and I see a jacket, I'll watch it and walk in and buy it.
Well, I meant particularly your ties. Well, that's okay.
I'll just see who this one is.
Please?
Now, this one happens to be Oleg Cassini, and I really don't know what it cost.
Well, they are beautiful, really.
Thank you.
Thanks for calling.
Uh-huh.
We'll be back in just a moment with Johnny Carson.
I wanted to ask you if that's your real name.
Is that your real name?
Yeah, John W. Carson. That's my real name.
Is it? Oh, okay, thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Sounds like a doubter to me, doesn't it?
Hi, Johnny Carson on the line. Hello.
Hello. I'd like to ask Mr. Carson, what advice would he give to a 13-year-old boy who's invested in going into...
Find a 14-year-old girl. No, what was the question?
You'll speak up just a bit, please.
No, I want to ask Mr. Carson,
Yeah.
what advice would he give to a 13-year-old boy who's interested in going into show business?
13 years old. What do you tell him?
Gee, that is probably one of the toughest questions to answer on a general basis. There are too many variables at that age. First of all, if you finish your schooling, I think is most important. I'm not sure that college, depending on what kind of end of the entertainment business you want to get into, is all important. But I think you finish your high school. You see, it's such a relative question when you say into show business, as a writer, as a performer, as a producer, as a director, as what? What do you want to go into?
Well, mainly as a performer.
Are you any good?
I think so.
Always say yes. Even in doubt. I think you try to get as much experience as you can working in front of people.
Oh, okay.
You play every kind of show you can for free if you have to see if you really have any talent.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you do? Sing?
I sing, dance, act,
Yeah.
so
Well?
on, model, everything.
I wish you well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Bye-bye.
Okay? Thanks for calling.
Okay.
Hi there. Johnny Carson on the line. You had a brief question. Hello.
Yes, I wanted to ask Mr. Carson why the Doc Severinsen Band does not get more of a spot on his show.
Recently, yes.
Why they don't get more?
More room, more time, more...
We're trying to use smaller groups. As I've said on the air, the problem with an orchestra like that, when they play, you really don't hear the way they should sound, unfortunately, because the little speaker on your television set is usually so small that the band sometimes doesn't sound the way it should. You can hear it better on records, which we try to feature the band as much as we can. We're using more small groups now out of the band, 4 or 5 pieces, because it's easier to pick up and you get a better quality.
Okay.
Thanks for calling.
Thank you.
Hi, Johnny Carson on the line. You had a brief question. Hello.
Yes, I would like to know if Johnny Carson's planning on having his wife on the show before long.
I don't know. I usually don't go that direction. Some performers do. Jack, for example, Parr.
Yes.
Constantly talked about it, but I kind of keep that part of it removed. Like Bob Hope does. He mentions his wife occasionally, but doesn't actually bring her into that end of the business.
Uh-huh. I know you hardly ever say anything about her, and I think a lot of people would like to see her.
Well, she is on television.
She does a show occasionally here and there on her own.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Are you planning on having Bob Hope or Dean Martin on before too long?
Well, we had Bob on last week.
Yes, I've seen that.
And Dean, if we can find Dean now, may be on with us in California.
Yes.
Thanks for calling.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be back in just a moment.
Into the land of heartburn comes the first liquid antacid without that liquid antacid taste. A really good tasting